It's Steve and Penny here. Hello.
Hello.
Quick update for you. What is it, Penny?
Well, we're very proud to announce that this year, 2025, we have been shortlisted for the final awards for Personnel Today Learning and Development Supplier of the Year, which is a fantastic category to be in.
We were in it last year.
Well, we
were
were
finalists. We didn't win, but never mind. So that was for our work with Shawbrook Bank. This year, it's for our work with the College of Policing.
Yeah, we ran a short programme for them covering workplace confidence for the future executive leaders of the police forces across England and Wales. We also did mastermind groups, which is peer-to-peer mentoring, and articulating their vision for policing.
We'll find out in November whether we've won.
Do you think I can get away with wearing the same outfit?
I'm wearing the same outfit.
Yeah, you are, aren't
Even
you?
though I'm a bit too slim for it now.
Oh yeah, you need to have it taken in a bit.
I originally got it for our 2022 awards ceremony.
You were quite
Lloyds
a lot
Bank.
bigger then.
So wish us luck.
Good luck. Hello, this time on the Penny Haslam podcast, keep it simple, stupid. Say more about less. People don't remember lots and lots of different facets and angles and learnings. Keep it really basic, but really bold. Think about that North Star and get feedback from other people about what you think that is. Don't shoulder all of this on your own. Make it a collaboration. I'm discussing how to plan a theme for your business event. Now, this has come up a lot for me over the last couple of years as I'm getting increasingly known as someone who's a good sounding board through my clients for what they might be theming their events and whether I should speak at them or not. So I'm always really happy to have a good conversation about this. I find it really creative. But I've noticed some missteps happening and some issues or pitfalls and traps that people tend to fall into. I thought it'd be a good time to put together some ideas, my take on how to plan that all-important theme for your business event. I've worked at hundreds of events. I've met thousands of people, both audience members, and event organisers, of course, when they book me. So this is my take on how to do it. Why are some so buzzy, and everyone's going away like fist bumping each other and punching the air and woo, and some just leave you a bit flat. It's a bit wishy-washy. So what happens in the organising of it that makes that the case? So we're going to look at how to define your event purpose. Really important to get this baseline in place. What is the purpose of your event? And some of the answers to that question will be straightforward, some not so. So I hope to inspire your thinking on that. Secondly, we're going to be looking at influencing factors. That's a bit wishy-washy in itself, isn't it? But I'll get into that in a minute. And thirdly, how to elevate your theme, how to really press it home, how to really make that the memorable bit of it, that people go away knowing what they came for. And knowing what they got when they left, not just what's in their goodie bag, but maybe what they're actually going home with in their minds as well. So let's get into it. And what I'm talking about when I talk about events, I'm thinking really of internal employee events. That might be a big all staff. It might be a network or an employee group that meets monthly or regularly. It might be a client event where you want to invite a whole load of clients into something. And also I'm thinking about the sort of annual stuff that people do events around, like International Women's Day, for example. And of course, there are those leadership off-sites or company away days, which are all important for the teams and the company. So I'm thinking around, corporate life, business life, organisations that gather people together, rather than events like putting on a rock show. That's how old I am. And I'm really speaking to the organisers of those events who are often doing this in their own time. It's kind of an off the side of the desk thing. It's not their full-time job. So hopefully it'll be helpful if you're in that position. So first, let's define your event purpose. Now, this is really let's take a step back. Let's not rush to the how to fill it, how to fill the day. We need to just pause and reflect on what we want to achieve and what are we going to define it as. Now, for example, if you're doing something that is around team building, you're then going to want to promote unity, collaboration. You might want to celebrate collective success and make that a sort of driving force. Purpose, not a theme yet. It's not a theme yet. Hold on. Let's think about the purpose. If you are hoping that, your people will lean into their careers a lot more. And I'm getting a lot of that conversation at the moment when people are putting on careers weeks or learning and development weeks at their place, often online. And it needs to have a really nice unifying theme to it. What's the purpose? I mean, yeah, sure, you want to educate and learn and develop people, but what's your theme for them? So that might be about growth, or it might be about progress, just sort of basics, really. You don't have to spend hours on this stuff. And of course, if you're inviting clients in, maybe there's an opportunity for networking. So that might be the purpose. So you want to encourage connections and interaction. I worked with a private equity firm recently who were putting on a big event in New York. Sadly, I was not invited to attend. I worked with their top team, their senior leadership team, as their coach and mentor when it came to them doing their keynotes and them doing the panel discussions and fireside interviews. And so the private equity firm weren't doing this for investors. They were doing this for the companies in which they invest. And they wanted it to be partly a networking thing, but also partly an educative thing where they were bringing often quite young startup types together to, embrace the idea that this is a journey. And that would benefit ultimately the private equity firm. So one of their themes came to be connect and learn. Simple as that, just saying it out loud, connect and learn regularly, and using that as their North Star to which everything else had to fit in, really. So that was their purpose. That had a really good conversation about it. And within that, you can also begin to develop ideas about what do you want your audience to do? What do you want them to know? And what do you want them to feel by the time you're done with them, by the time they leave the event? So what do you want them to do? Well, it might be, and in the case of the private equity firm, it was really simple. They wanted everyone to join the WhatsApp group, the learning WhatsApp group, so they could exchange ideas and troubleshoot and ultimately form some sort of like peer-to-peer learning or peer mentoring support, and maybe form some smaller groups from that. So it was about creating a community of these startups that the PE firm were investing in. So that's what they wanted them to do. And so in every sort of section, they would put the WhatsApp group title, join, remind, so it was a simple call to action. What do you want them to know, right? And, this is interesting because you don't necessarily want them to know everything. You might want them to know something like, it's okay to fail. So you might want them to know about your values and be reminded of those again. So it's not like a learning moment where they have to make notes and, remember it. So that's not necessarily about imparting information. What do you want them to know? You want them to know that they're being invested in, perhaps, and that they're special and they're valued and they're worth it. You want them to know that their applications for a promotion are welcome. That's what happened at one of the events I spoke at, which was a careers week, trying to encourage more women into the talent pipeline. And they'd noticed there was a dropout in applications at a certain level. And so they wanted the audience to know that it was brilliant to apply, even if you didn't quite get the job in that case. You'd be able to get mentored from it, you'd be able to get feedback from it. So they wanted them to be reassured. So it doesn't have to be knowledge. It can be about permission to do stuff, permission to speak up or innovate, push boundaries, that sort of thing. And then finally, what do you want this event to help people feel? Now that's interesting. It's a little bit different to know. What do you want them to know about? What do you want them to feel? Do you want them to feel pumped up? Do you want them to feel motivated? Maybe, ideally, yeah. But you might also want them to feel that there's work to be done and they can't just coast on what's happening. To feel empowered with the knowledge, but also galvanized to do something together about it. to innovate and change the direction of the strategy, for example. So those are really good, very simple discussions to have with a few colleagues about what is the event purpose and really what do you want your audience to do, know and feel by the time your amazing event has ended. Topic 2, let's look at influencing factors. But of course, there are loads of other influencing factors, and they might come from within. It might be change that you want to communicate and get on board. You know, have objectives there. And so are you using this event to help align corporate goals, for example? You might also be thinking that the stuff in the industry, you know, what hot topics are on the button at the moment. And then, of course, what about the economic climate? Quite often, the elephant in the room is ignored when it comes to stuff like that. And I don't really think it should be. Like the cost of living crisis, for example. I dare say when it first hit the newsstands and hit our pockets, actually, there was a lot of hand-wringing at top levels about what to do and say about it. I think if you don't acknowledge, you know, the big things that are going on in the world, then it's uncomfortable for everyone. And if you take stuff that's happening in the news as well, that's really, you know, it might have a bearing on your event. It might have a bearing on the audience at that moment in time, which needs to be acknowledged that we're all sort of in this together. We all notice there's a big thing that's happening that's uncertain and it's volatile, and you know, maybe it's about conflict as well. And so you can acknowledge them. You don't have to make it part of your theme, but you probably need to put it on your mood board of what is to be borne in mind. Of course, there's other technological forces like the advancement of AI or even a new bit of tech. In fact, I was speaking at the launch of a product. You'll find this very funny, I'm sure, but it was the launch of a new sewing machine. I know, it's not my usual topic. And gathered in the room were a group of about 100 independent retailers who sold sewing machines. And the brand was really keen for them to understand about this new sewing machine and feel excited about it. And there was a technology around it that was exciting and gave the room a bit of a buzz. May I say, this new sewing machine was going to be costing circa £15,000. So it was fairly professional and substantial. And very exciting. So yeah, it's not just AI that's coming down the track, but new sewing machines as well to be talked about and celebrated. And then another influencing factor, which you as an individual working alone may not be thinking of. This is a really cool opportunity to bring in some other people from the organisation who've got other views of things. So, you know, you might have somebody saying, look, we need more brand alignment. Our employee engagement numbers are a bit low, and that voice might be the voice of HR, for example. Or it might be that marketing is a bit frustrated because no one's picking up on the LinkedIn posts that they keep doing, and could there be a bit more brand alignment with employees as well? So you might bring those two ideas together and think, well, actually, a really strong influencing factor is that we need to be making our brand more exciting. We need to get employees and customers potentially more excited about it. So how can we weave that into our theme? It's all stuff to put on your initial brain dump or your initial mood board that needs to be paid attention to. You don't have to follow through with it, but certainly to be aware is a really good part of thinking about your influencing factors. The third and final topic for me is about how to elevate your theme. So you may well have come up with a lovely theme that aligns with your desired outcomes. You know, let's be bold, let's be memorable. It might be about connection and growth. It might be to do with values and mission consistency. So thinking of a theme, it doesn't have to be detailed in the language that you use around it. Connect, learn. What next for blah, blah, blah. You know, so you're having a kind of developing a North Star so that every bit of content, every bit of interactivity workshop, panel discussion, everything you do relates to that North Star. And so you're always going to be thinking, how can I do that? And so thinking about, for example, the speakers that you might book. Now, typically in an internal employee event, the lineup will be usually the obvious people, the obvious suspects, the leaders. It might be that you have a keynote Kickstarter, like a motivational or inspirational speaker, or a closer who does that. Or often I'm booked for the after lunch slot to bring in a bit of fresh blood, as it were, and get people over that carbohydrate slump after lunch with my energy. Elevating the theme, you can do this in a really subtle way. So I really enjoy taking a brief from a client who's going to be telling me about their theme, but also telling me everything that's been happening behind the scenes to get towards that theme. Why are you using this brilliant theme of, creativity and future? I don't know, because actually we've recognized we can advance market share if we were to develop this product. And so you want to get people excited on that. And then once I've understood the brief, I can then not just turn up and do my usual speech that I do for everyone else. I can nuance and tailor-make my content and use references that you've told me in my talk, obviously with a sanity check of there are some things you don't need to mention, but there are some things you definitely need to mention and definitely need to encourage people towards. So that in a speaker can be really useful. So as well as having their content and their expertise aligning with what your theme is, you also want to brief them so that they can, even in the sentences they speak, be helping you elevate your theme. And the same is true if you're putting on a panel discussion. You want to brief the panel moderator and the panelists to keep coming back to the theme. I went to spoke at an event in April where the theme was about collaboration. I don't do any work on collaboration. I was asked to speak to this theme, and I was able to move some of what I talked into the collaborative sort of ideas space. And the panel that came after me that I sat on, we talked about collaboration and examples of. My take on that was that I wasn't used to collaborating with people, and I felt that trust isn't often an issue. So how might you get around that? So I had a different angle on it, but it was a welcome one nonetheless on the lineup. It wasn't just, come on everyone, collaborate, it'll be brilliant. It was like, well, okay, let's talk about some challenges towards that. So this is how you would galvanize, strengthen, embolden and elevate your theme. But of course, the usual tricks are there around video promotion before you even get to the event, involving and engaging people through social or internal social media channels, in thinking and contributing their own ideas to the theme as well. And of course, visually, you can incorporate your theme throughout your slide deck, on the handouts or interactivity that you do. You might run some interactive warm-up games or icebreakers that will pertain to that. I mean, I know at the private equity company that I worked with, their big event in New York, they certainly did facilitated networking because they wanted to build the network, and that was one of their themes. So that exercise was very strongly connected and aligned to the North Star of what the event was all about. So really, I would say, keep it simple, stupid. KISS. Keep it simple, right? Say more about less. People don't remember lots and lots of different facets and angles and learnings. Keep it really basic, but really bold in that. Think about that North Star and get feedback from other people about what you think that is. Don't shoulder all of this on your own. Make it a collaboration. And don't do it too soon before the event. Don't rush to it. I have worked with a client who had an event in 2 weeks' time. And can you help? I was like, have you got a theme? No. Right, okay. Let's sort that out first. And then once we've done that, everything else will fall into place. It will be beautiful. And it was. And in doing all of those things, in involving other people and thinking about your theme as a first thing that you do, you'll find your event organising so much easier and so much more straightforward when you've taken the time to just plot that out and have a really good think about it. Write it down on a mood board. and then get going with Post-it notes, Sharpies. Oh, you're going to have a lovely time. So that's my take on how to plan or create a theme for your business event. I hope it's been useful. And of course, if you want to have a conversation with me about your theme, I would be happy to act as a sounding board for you and to see if I can help. Get in touch. hello@bitfamous.co.uk. Thanks for listening.